Hello and welcome to A Sunny Book Nook. Today I am going to be reviewing a recently released debut and very hyped book, Black Book by Mateo Askaripour. This book is one that took me a while to get through, mostly because it was a really wild ride and the whole time I kept on being very deeply uncomfortable and very disturbed by our main character's actions. And because we are in his mind basically the whole time and we're following everything that happens to him in that perspective through that way, we are thrust headfirst into all of these various conflicts and experiences of brainwashing and his changes and his adaptations into the person that he ultimately becomes. And I think that this book does a really good job at what it ultimately wants to say, because I think that this book functions almost as satire, functions almost as a parody or a spoof almost, but in a really dark and sad way. It's like a black comedy, I suppose. It kind of reminds me of the vibes that you get while watching Sorry to Bother You, directed by Boots Riley. That movie is phenomenal. Please go watch it if you haven't already. And I know that in the sort of marketing for this book, people have talked about how it reminds them of Sorry to Bother You, and I really see that to be true. I also think it probably also mirrors The Wolf of Wall Street or Parasite, the commentary about class and the absolute frivolity and indulgence and excess of wealth and the sham of corporate structures and rising in the ranks of a capitalist system, and what that does to damage your personal psyche and all the relationships in your life, as well as just losing touch of who you are and your identity. Because in this book, I think that the marketing around this, as well as the synopsis, it really centers the fact that it's really about a black man's experience in an all-white institution, in an all-white corporation, trying to make his way in this place. We don't know what this company actually does until later on in the book, and once we do figure it out, and once things unfold, it's really just not pretty, because we see as our main character, Darren, goes from a person who just works at a Starbucks, manages coffees and whatever, to climbing the corporate ladder and working at this startup full of young people who are mostly dickwads. And the way that he's treated as a black man is horrendous. The micro and macro aggressions that he experiences throughout the entirety of this book are so deeply just cringeworthy, and I think that the almost indoctrination that he experiences in joining this company, it's almost cult-like. But the thing is that isn't that true for almost all experiences with workplaces? To adapt yourself to fit the surroundings that you are in, to adopt the mannerisms and the behaviors that you are supposed to conform to, the acknowledgement of your superiors in a way that really puts their worth and their value and their opinion strictly above yours, and their ability to dictate your every move is just, it's so powerful and palpable, because if you don't, then you could lose your job and your livelihood and everything that you've worked so hard to create. And I think that also the relationships in our main character's lives, his connection to his mother and the people in his family in Bed-Stuy, are just so tragic, because they ultimately want the best for him and he wants the best for them. He wants them to be happy that he is succeeding, but ultimately, what does success even mean? And at what cost does success even come at? And I think that we see as Darren ruins basically every meaningful relationship in his life in this pursuit of wealth, in this pursuit of success that is ultimately a sham. And I think that the framing of this book as, I'm writing this story to tell all the young people of color of America how to become a really good salesperson and sell your way into anything and buy yourself a better life. And I think that the framework of that throughout the entire story, because that's really the framing device, because at the very beginning of the story, If I'm successful in teaching you how to sell and fix the game, I ask that you buy another copy of this book and give it to a friend who needs it most. Who is stuck like I was and in need of a way out? Who is blind to the game but has potential, just like you? Does that sound fair? If so, and if you can do the 3 things I outlined above, then we have a deal. And if we have a deal, it's time for you to do one last thing. Turn the page. Happy selling. Buck. I think that the framing of this is almost just so ingenious because the ending of the story, okay, this is a spoiler-free review, so I'm not gonna get into exactly what the ending is, but I think that the plot progression of the story and this pacing is set up in a way that makes a perfect flip on the head. It almost models itself after like a motivational speaker or one of those scammers who's trying to sell you a better life if only you do this, this, and this that I say, and you buy this, this, and this, and you sell yourself out in this and this and this way, which is ultimately what this book is really about. And we see how that will impact him and how the advice that he's giving to other people when later on in the book, like towards the very end, he creates an underground organization that is basically a coalition of people of color who are training each other in how to be good salespeople and get high earning positions in various corporate jobs. And wow, I know that Bookish Realm, Ashley, said that this book left her feeling really hopeless and it was really hard to get through. And I agree. I think that ultimately the hopelessness of this story and the conclusion that it comes to, in contrast to our main character's hope and optimism and constant determination and striving forward despite everything, is what this book is really getting at. The point is that when you lose everything to try to succeed and win a game that is unfairly rigged in every way, as racial capitalism fundamentally is, you're gonna lose. Even if you do win initially, it's a loss for everyone. And for people of color, for people from marginalized backgrounds, for people who are not the people that corporations and all white institutions are centering themselves around, even in a performative way. Those performative gestures of inclusion, diversity, or whatever, in contrast to the actual material changes that people need to make and that society needs to make to better the lives of marginalized people, I just really think this book talks about that in a phenomenal way. Because of all of that, I rated this book 4 stars, and because I think it's really genius in how it presents itself to the reader and how it's like satirical, but I think that if you don't pick up on that and if your ultimate takeaway is that hopelessness as opposed to the insight on the hopelessness of our character situation, we are asking to sympathize with our main character the entire plot of the book, but we know things are not going well. That dichotomy was just very interesting for me, but I didn't rate it 5 stars because that dichotomy itself was what made it really unenjoyable to read, what made it such a long time for me to drag myself through it, because I didn't want to see our main character continue fucking up. I didn't want to continue seeing our main character play into this rigged game, play into this rigged system, and just have to bear the brunt of the racism that he faces, racism that he inflicts on himself and the people around him, and the mindset, this hustle culture, everyone can just do better if they just put their mind to things and scam the game the way that the game is scamming us. It is really sad, but it's also funny, but sad, I don't know. I think this book was good and I would recommend it, but I think that you need to go into it with the mindset that you will not like our main character. I hope this review was insightful for you. I really enjoyed this book. I thought that my takeaways of the irony of it, if that's wrong, if that's not what the author intended, I'm sorry. But also, that was just my interpretation, my reading of the book. Corporate institutions, capitalism, the law, white supremacy, all of this stuff, they all work together and they are all evil. Evil. And even when you think you're winning the game, you're really losing. That's my review of Black Book by Mateo Askaripour. And thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the stupid bullshit. If you want to see live updates on, my reading and, my thoughts while I'm in the midst of reading books, follow me on Goodreads, friend me there. Always link down below, as always, along with all my other social medias. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!